The Isolation Directive. The Galactic Concorde's high chamber had never seemed so vast and empty. Ambassador Vextaler of the Zith Collective stared at the vacant human delegation seats, untouched for 15 cycles, and suppressed a shudder. The smooth obsidian chairs, once filled with the unpredictable, loud, and often irritating human representatives, now stood as silent monuments to absence. The annual review of the Human Isolation Directive is now in session, announced Supreme Arbiter Calvin, his crystalline exoskeleton refracting light across the chamber. The floor recognizes Ambassador Vextalar. Vextalar rose, his forearms arranged in the formal posture of respectful dissent. The bioluminescent patterns along his gray-blue skin pulsed with anxiety, a reaction he couldn't fully suppress despite his diplomatic training. Esteemed members of the Concorde, he began, voice steady despite his internal turmoil, I come before you with troubling data from the Border Surveillance Network. For the third consecutive cycle, we've detected anomalous energy signatures in the Perseus void, directly adjacent to human space. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Perseus void had been a neutral zone since the humans enacted their isolation directive 15 cycles ago, severing all diplomatic, economic, and communication ties with the Galactic Concorde. Trade Minister Xeraxian, a massive arthropoid whose mandibles clicked with annoyance, interrupted. The humans made their choice clear. They rejected our technological restrictions as patronizing and short-sighted. They took their primitive weapons and underdeveloped civilization home like petulant younglings. Why should we concern ourselves with anomalies near their self-imposed prison? Vextalar activated the central holographic display. Because of this, the chamber darkened as three-dimensional visualizations materialized. Massive energy signatures, unlike anything recognized in the Concorde's extensive databases. They pulsed and shifted, seemingly alive yet mechanical, structured yet chaotic. These readings began at the edge of the Perseus void 3 cycles ago, Vextalar continued. They've since expanded in both intensity and range. Last movement period, we lost contact with Outpost Sigma 9, a research station monitoring the human border. Defense Coordinator Luzin, a being of living plasma contained within an advanced exosuit, leaned forward. Lost contact how, precisely? Complete silence. No distress signals, no automated systems reports. Simply, gone. Vextalar's skin flashed dark purple, universal indicator of deep concern. Against protocol, I dispatched a scout vessel to investigate. Supreme Arbiter Calvin's crystalline form vibrated with disapproval. You exceeded your authority, Ambassador. I did, Vextalar acknowledged. And I would do so again. Because what my scout vessel discovered before it too went silent was this. The hologram shifted to grainy footage, a massive structure, organic yet geometric, seemingly absorbing the outpost. Before the transmission cut, something moved across the frame, too fast to identify, but clearly massive. Silence fell across the chamber, broken only by the soft humming of environmental systems. The Void Eaters, whispered Elder Jogzan, the ancient representative of the luminous harmony, whose species predated even the formation of the Concorde. They were supposed to be extinct. Myths, scoffed Xeraxian. Stories to frighten younglings. Elder Jogzan's bioluminescent tendrils writhed with ancient memory. Not myths. History. Before the Concorde, before most of your species achieved sentience, the Void Eaters consumed 12 civilizations. Only a desperate alliance managed to drive them beyond the galaxy's edge. If these truly are your Void Eaters, interjected Defense Coordinator Luzin skeptically, why appear now? Why near human space? Vextalar's four hands gestured in the pattern indicating uncomfortable truth. That is the question that led me to the restricted archives. Supreme Arbiter Calvin rose to his full height. You had no clearance for such access. No, Vextalar agreed. But what I found explains much. He adjusted the hologram to display ancient data records. The last time the Void Eaters appeared, They targeted systems with specific electromagnetic signatures produced by early quantum communication technology. Understanding dawned across various faces in the chamber. "The humans," murmured Trade Minister Xeraxian. "Precisely," Vex Teller said. "When we denied humans access to advanced quantum technology 15 cycles ago, they began developing their own. Their electromagnetic emissions must have awakened something dormant at the galaxy's edge." "You suggest the Council's decision directly endangered the Concord?" Supreme Arbiter Colvin's voice carried dangerous harmonics. "I suggest," Vex Teller replied carefully, "that in our desire to contain what we perceived as human recklessness, we may have denied ourselves allies against a threat we knew might return." "Even if what you suggest is true," countered Lazen, "the humans isolated themselves. They shut down all communication relays, altered the quantum signatures of their jump gates. We have no way to contact them." Elder Zhogzen's ancient eyes fixed on Vex Teller. "But that isn't quite true, is it, Ambassador?" All attention returned to Vex Teller, whose skin now pulsed with resignation. "Before the humans enacted their isolation directive, I served as liaison to their scientific delegation. One of their scientists, Dr. Eleanor Chen, gave me an emergency quantum entanglement device, a direct line outside official channels." The chamber erupted into shouts and accusations. "Silence," commanded Supreme Arbiter Colvin. When order returned, he addressed Vex Teller directly. "You've concealed this technology for 15 cycles, a severe violation of Concord law." "Yes," Vex Teller admitted, "but I propose we use it now." The humans' departure was not simply petulance, as some suggest. It was a calculated response to what they perceived as the Concord's fear of innovation and change. "If the Void Eaters have truly returned, we need the humans' unpredictability, their intuitive leaps of logic, he searched for the right word, their capacity for beneficial recklessness." The chamber fell silent as the implications settled. "We denied them advancement because we feared what they might become," Vex Teller continued. "But perhaps what we should have feared more was facing the darkness without them." 3 movement periods later, Vex Teller stood alone in his private chambers, the small quantum entanglement device humming softly in his hands. The Council's debate had been fierce, but with 2 more outposts gone silent and strange energy signatures appearing deeper in Concord space, even the most stubborn isolationists had reluctantly agreed. "Contact the humans." The device was elegant in its simplicity, a testament to human ingenuity even 15 cycles ago. Dr. Chen had explained it required only intent and activation. The quantum link remained stable regardless of distance. Vex Teller pressed his primary right hand against the activation surface. The device warmed, recognized his biometric signature, and pulsed once with soft blue light. "Eleanor Chen," he spoke clearly, using the human naming convention that had once felt so awkward on his speech membranes. "This is Ambassador Vex Teller of the Zith Collective. The Concord faces extinction. The Void Eaters have returned. I request human assistance." For several moments, nothing happened. Vex Teller's hope began to fade. Perhaps the link had degraded. Perhaps the humans had destroyed their corresponding devices. Perhaps. The device pulsed bright gold, then projected a holographic image, not of Eleanor Chen, but of a human male, older, with close-cropped silver hair and eyes that seemed to evaluate Vex Teller with unsettling precision. "Ambassador," the human said, voice carrying none of the warmth Vex Teller remembered from human communications. "This is Admiral Marcus Rice, Earth Defense Command. We've been expecting your call." Vex Teller's skin flashed with surprise. "You've been expecting?" "We detected the Void Eater's emergence 3 cycles ago," Admiral Rice stated matter-of-factly. "We've been monitoring their advance through Concord space while finalizing our preparations. You know of the Void Eaters, but how? When the Concord denied us access to your archives, we pursued our own research paths," Rice interrupted. including archaeological expeditions to systems consumed in previous incursions. We know what we're facing. Vextaler struggled to process this. Then you'll help us. For the first time, the Admiral's stern expression softened slightly. Ambassador, contrary to what the Concord may believe, humanity didn't leave because we wanted isolation. We left because we needed freedom, to develop, to prepare. The Concord saw only the risks of innovation. We saw the necessity. What are you saying, Admiral? I'm saying, Ambassador, that humanity has spent 15 cycles preparing for this moment. We knew they would return eventually. Then you will join us. Hope flickered through Vextaler's luminescent patterns. Admiral Rice nodded. Transmitting coordinates now. Bring your highest-ranking officials and military commanders. It's time the Concord saw what humanity has become in your absence. As the transmission ended, Vextaler stared at the coordinates that appeared on his device. They pointed to a location deep in the Perseus void, in a sector where no habitable systems had ever been recorded. What waited for them there, he couldn't begin to imagine. The Awakening Alliance. The diplomatic vessel Harmonious Accord dropped out of FTL at the provided coordinates, surrounded by the escort of 20 Concord warships, the largest military contingent the Concord could assemble on short notice. Vextaler stood on the bridge beside Supreme Arbiter Calvin and Defense Coordinator Lazen, all three struck speechless by the scene before them. Where empty space should have been, a massive artificial structure hung against the backdrop of stars, a construct so vast it defied comprehension. Not a station or a shipyard as the Concord understood such things, but something more organic, more evolved. It seemed to pulse with energy, its surface a complex latticework of technology that shifted and realigned continuously. By the first light, whispered Supreme Arbiter Calvin, crystalline form resonating with shock. What have they built? Before anyone could respond, a transmission cut through all communication channels, bypassing encryption and security protocols with ease. Concord Vessel Harmonious Accord, this is Earth Defense Command Central. You are cleared for approach to Nexus Archimedes. Follow the guidance markers, deviate from the designated path at your own risk. Glowing blue pathways materialized in space before them, creating a precise route through what Vextaler now realized was a complex defensive grid. As their vessel proceeded, they passed human ships, or what the humans now called ships. Each was unique, seemingly designed for specific purposes rather than following standardized patterns. Some were massive, easily dwarfing the largest Concord dreadnoughts. Others were tiny, barely visible except for the energy signatures they emitted. Our intelligence suggested the humans had developed some new technologies. Defense Coordinator Lazen said quietly, the plasma within his containment suit agitated. But this is beyond innovation. This is evolutionary. No, came a human voice from behind them. This is necessity. They turned to find Admiral Rice standing on their bridge, though no transport had been detected. Next to him stood a slender human female with silver-streaked black hair and familiar eyes. Dr. Chen, Vextaler's skin rippled with recognition patterns. It has been many cycles. 15 years, 4 months, and 17 days by Earth standard, she replied with a small smile. You've aged well, Ambassador. Supreme Arbiter Calvin moved forward, his crystalline form shifting to its most authoritative configuration. How did you board our vessel without detection? Quantum entanglement transportation, Admiral Rice answered matter-of-factly. One of many technologies we've developed since our departure. Impossible, Defense Coordinator Lazen declared. The energy requirements alone would be prohibitive using your power generation methods. Dr. Chen finished for him. But we don't use those anymore. She gestured toward the massive structure they were approaching. Nexus Archimedes isn't just a defensive platform. It's our primary research facility, power generator, and command center for this sector. This sector? Vextaler questioned. You have more of these. Admiral Rice's expression remained neutral. We have 7, positioned strategically throughout the Perseus void. This is merely the one we've chosen to reveal to you. The implications stunned the Concorde delegation into silence as their vessel docked within the massive structure. As they disembarked, Vex Talar noticed the diversity of humans present, working alongside artificial intelligences embodied in synthetic forms, and even several species he didn't recognize, clearly not from Concorde space. They were escorted to a vast chamber where a holographic representation of the galaxy rotated slowly. Red markers pulsed at various points, steadily advancing inward from the galactic rim. The Void Eater's current positions, Admiral Rice explained. Their advance has accelerated in the past movement period. At current rates, they'll reach major Concorde population centers within 2 cycles. How do you track them so precisely? Asked Lazen. Our best detection systems can barely register their presence until they're upon us. Dr. Chen gestured, and the hologram zoomed in on one of the red markers. We developed quantum resonance mapping that can detect their unique subspace distortions. They exist partially outside normal spacetime, which is why conventional sensors struggle to detect them, and why conventional weapons barely affect them. Added a new voice as an elderly human female entered the chamber, leaning slightly on a cane. Despite her apparent physical frailty, her presence commanded immediate attention. Admiral Chen, Rice said respectfully, I didn't expect you to join us. When first contact with a species that abandoned us is reestablished, I make exceptions to my schedule, she replied dryly, then faced the Concorde delegation. I am Fleet Admiral Helena Chen, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces. You are here because my daughter, she nodded toward Dr. Chen, convinced me that cooperation serves humanity's interests better than allowing the Concorde to fall. Supreme Arbiter Colvin's crystalline form shifted to indicate formal respect. The Concorde acknowledges its miscalculations regarding humanity. We are prepared to offer full technological exchange and— No, Admiral Helena interrupted flatly. You misunderstand. We're not here to rejoin your Concorde or submit to your governance. We're offering an alliance of equals against a common threat. Equals. Trade Minister Sarakshin's mandibles clicked with indignation. The Concorde represents over 300 species across 12,000 systems. Humanity is but one species confined to. Confined. Admiral Helena laughed, a sharp sound without humor. Minister, in the 15 cycles since we left your Concorde, humanity has established colonies in 78 systems beyond the Perseus void. We've formed peaceful relations with 12 non-Concorde species, 5 of which have joined what we call the Terran Cooperative. The hologram shifted to display human expansion, systems glowing blue beyond the Perseus void, extending in directions the Concorde had never fully explored. Impossible, whispered Calvin. The resources required, the time constraints. What limited humanity in the Concorde, Dr. Eleanor explained gently, was not our capability but your restrictions. You feared our potential for violence, our impulsiveness, our technological adaptability. You never understood these were the same traits that would make us essential allies against existential threats. Admiral Rice tapped the holographic controls, focusing on one particular Void Eater cluster. 3 days ago, we engaged this group at the edge of the Ta-CD system. We destroyed 2 of their harvester vessels and damaged a 3rd before they retreated. Defense Coordinator Lazen's containment suit pulsed with shock. You've successfully engaged them in combat. How? In response, Admiral Rice expanded the hologram to show the battle. Human vessels, if such organic mechanical hybrids could still be called vessels, engaged the Void Eaters using weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. Space folded and twisted. Targeted energy bursts created localized temporal distortions. Quantum filaments attached to the Void Eaters' vessels, forcing them fully into normal spacetime where conventional weapons could affect them. Quantum tethering technology, Dr. Eleanor explained, combined with focused reality distortion and temporal phase shifting. Once locked in normal spacetime, even their regenerative capabilities have limits. Vextalar watched the Concord delegation's reactions shift from shock to something else. Hope, mixed with deep unease. Humanity had achieved in 15 cycles what the Concord's careful, methodical approach to technological advancement might have taken centuries to develop. Your proposal? Supreme Arbiter Calvin finally asked, his tone carefully neutral. Admiral Helena nodded to her daughter, who activated a new holographic display. Technical schematics for retrofitting Concorde vessels with simplified versions of human defensive technologies. We offer immediate defensive upgrades for your major population centers and military vessels, Admiral Helena stated. In exchange, we require access to Concorde space for our fleets to engage the Void Eaters directly. Additionally, we want formal recognition of the Terran Cooperative as a sovereign political entity equal to the Concorde, with all associated rights and diplomatic considerations. You ask much, Trade Minister Xeraxian observed. We offer survival, Admiral Reyes countered simply. As the negotiations continued, Vextalar found himself standing beside Dr. Eleanor, near the viewport overlooking the vast interior of Nexus Archimedes. You knew, he said quietly, when you gave me that quantum entanglement device, you knew this day would come. Eleanor smiled sadly. We suspected. Humanity accessed enough of the ancient records before our departure to recognize patterns. The Void Eaters return in roughly 15,000-year cycles. The timing aligned too perfectly to ignore. So humanity didn't leave because of wounded pride or frustration with restrictions. Those were factors, she acknowledged. But primarily, we left because we needed to prepare. And the Concorde's cautious approach would have left us all defenseless when they returned. She turned to face him directly. The Concorde feared what humanity might become without restrictions. What you never considered was what we needed to become to ensure galactic survival. Vextalar's skin rippled with complex emotions. And now, after this threat is eliminated, will humanity rejoin the greater community? In a way, Eleanor said, but not as you remember us. We've changed, Vex. We've evolved. The humans who left the Concorde were children throwing a tantrum, as your trade minister so elegantly put it. The humans returning are something else entirely. As if to emphasize her point, a massive human vessel passed the viewport, half organic, pulsing with energies that defied Concorde understanding, yet unmistakably a product of human ingenuity and vision. Something better? Vextalar asked. Eleanor's expression turned thoughtful. Something necessary, she replied. For all our sakes. Behind them, the negotiations continued, the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. The humans had abandoned the Concorde, and the universe had trembled, not from their absence, but from what their freedom had allowed them to become. And in the darkness between stars, the Void Eaters advanced, unaware that their ancient prey had finally evolved into a worthy predator.